Alright guys, so let's have a quick review of biotechnology. So we have mentioned before that biotechnology is the application of biological concepts for the benefit of man, di ba? And there are three areas under biotechnology. So first, we have what we call ancient biotechnology. So when we speak of ancient biotechnology, this involves agriculture and domestication of animals, right? And this was done even during prehistoric times, wherein our ancestors, they were able to plant. Okay, they engage in agriculture, and our ancestors, our prehistoric ancestors, they were also to domesticate animals. Like the people during the Mesolithic and Neolithic periods wherein they engage in agriculture and animal domestication, which resulted in the settlement of the people. They learn how to settle down, right? And because they learn how to settle down, the population increased, and that led to the development of ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, right? So that's ancient biotechnology. So ancient biotechnology involves the domestication of animals and agriculture. Then we have classical biotechnology. When we speak of classical biotechnology, this involves the production of products or items that involves fermentation. All right? Like for example, vinegar. Vinegar involves fermentation. So with cheese, beer, wine, pastries, they make use of microorganisms like Saccharomyces or the common yeast, and bacteria like Lactobacillus type bacteria that also engages in fermentation. So pag sinabi nating classical biotech, basta any item that involves fermentation, even drugs like antibiotics. Now, most antibiotics, they make use of microorganisms like penicillium. No, you know, penicillium that led to the development of the first antibiotic or penicillin. So yan yung classical biotech that involves fermentation. Okay, then we have modern biotechnology. So when we speak of modern biotechnology, we refer to genetic engineering or recombinant DNA technology. Alright, yan. Recombinant DNA technology, also known as genetic engineering, refers to the manipulation and modification of the DNA, no, to create new combinations of genetic material. So ang importante lang dito sa recombinant DNA or genetic engineering is we manipulate the DNA of another organism, or you transfer segments of DNA from one organism to another organism. All right? And if you will recall, in genetic engineering or recombinant DNA, this combines DNA from different species of living things to create new genes with desired functions. All right, so that's genetic engineering or recombinant DNA. And I think last meeting we have also studied yung structure ng DNA, that the DNA is composed of segments or gene, di ba? A gene is a segment of DNA that controls a particular trait. Like there is a gene for eye color, there's a gene for hair texture, for height, even behavior is controlled by specific genes in our DNA. So, ang gene is a segment of DNA that controls or regulates certain traits. Yan. Genes are segments of DNA, and each gene contains information about a certain trait. Yan, there's a gene for eye color, there's another gene for, let's say, the production of melanin. Diba, melanin determines skin color, mga ganun guys. So, that's the concept of the gene. Okay, and in recombinant DNA, the technology was made possible because of the discovery by Stanley Cohen and Herbert Moyer of restriction enzymes. So using restriction enzymes, we have now the technology of cutting, cutting certain segments of DNA and attaching it to the DNA of another organism using ligase. So ang restriction enzymes para silang molecular scissors. No, they are molecular scissors that can cut the DNA at specific points. So yun yung restriction enzymes, so they can cut the specific genes in the DNA molecule. And yung mga genes na yan, they can attach to another genome using ligase. So, ang ligase, guys, para siyang glue, parang molecular glue that helps attach the gene to another DNA of another organism. So, here is an animation showing how recombinant DNA is achieved. Ayan, no? So, you have here a circular loop of DNA, itong green na ito. This green circular loop of DNA is called a plasmid. Yung plasmid, kinukuha yan sa bacteria. Okay? Ang mga bacteria kasi meron silang circular piece of DNA called the plasmid. Alright? And ang plasmid ay madali siyang manipulate. So, pwede nating putulin yung plasmid na yan using restriction enzymes. Yan, nakikita nyo yung gunting na yan. Yung gunting na yan that represents restriction enzymes, then pwede natin putulin yung specific gene, let's say a human gene. Then using ligase, we will reattach yung gene na yan, ito yung pula, dun sa plasmid DNA ng bacteria, using DNA ligase. So you have now what we call a recombinant plasmid. So that's how recombinant DNA works. So you have here, ito yung gene to be inserted, yan yung foreign gene, pwedeng human gene yan. Then itong circular piece of DNA, yan yung plasmid DNA. So we can cut the plasmid using restriction enzymes. Then we insert itong human gene na ito into the plasmid using DNA ligase. The result, ito, is a recombinant plasmid. So yung pula, yun yung DNA ng bacteria. Yung blue, yun yung human DNA. So, that's how recombinant DNA works. Ngayon, baka magtanong kayo, bakit pinili yung bacteria? Why is it that bacteria is used in genetic engineering? Ang bacteria kasi mabilis dumami, especially E. coli. E. coli yung ginagamit in genetic engineering. Alright? Just focus on number 4. Yan, ng bacteria, they have rapid multiplication ability. Ayan, no? So, yan yung pinaka-main reason kung bakit bacteria ang ginagamit for genetic engineering experiments, especially E. coli or Escherichia coli. Ang E. coli, ito yung makikita sa tae. E. coli is the common bacteria in fecal matter, no, sa tae. Maraming E. coli doon. Kasi mabilis dumami ang E. coli. And ang E. coli, maraming plasmids na madali siyang i-manipulate. Yan, bacteria has plasmids and these plasmids, pwede silang putulin, they can be manipulated for genetic engineering experiments. Okay guys, so those are the reasons why bacteria are being used for genetic engineering. Huh? Okay, so this is how it works. So we get a human cell, di ba, sa human cell may nucleus. And inside the nucleus, doon yung makikita yung mga chromosomes. The chromosomes are thread-like structures that contains our DNA. Then using restriction enzymes, we isolate, puputulin natin yung gene of interest. Yan, ito, nakikita nyo ito, itong part ng DNA. Okay, then at the same time, kukuha tayo ng E. coli, bacteria, we get the plasmid, isolate the plasmid, and cut it using restriction enzymes, no, parang ganito. Then we combine the two DNA, yung DNA ng human, ito yung gene, saka yung DNA ng bacteria dito sa plasmid. The result is a recombinant plasmid DNA, ito. With the foreign DNA, yung human gene. Ayan guys, so that's how it works. So you get a human gene, yung gene of interest sa DNA ng tao, and we get a plasmid DNA of E. coli. We cut the plasmid using restriction enzymes. Then using DNA ligase, i-reattach natin yung human gene dun sa plasmid ng E. coli, resulting in a recombinant plasmid. Then ibabalik natin to sa bacteria, yung E. coli, with the gene of interest, yung human gene. So ang mangyayari dito, yung bacteria was reprogrammed para yung bacteria magpo-produce ng certain product, no, like insulin. Let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes is a condition wherein a person has too much sugar or glucose in the blood. So, ang glucose levels ng diabetics mataas. Pero ang katawan natin has its way of lowering our blood sugar. So, ang pancreas, no, meron tayong organ called the pancreas. The pancreas produces a substance called insulin. Okay, itong insulin na to, when introduced into the bloodstream, will lower our blood sugar. Magiging manonormalize yung blood sugar natin because of insulin produced by the pancreas. Kaya lang, ang problema ng mga diabetics is that the pancreas cannot produce insulin anymore. No, because of siguro age. Kasi ang diabetes is an age-related disease. So sa katandaan, medyo may diferensya na rin yung pancreas. So the pancreas doesn't produce insulin. So pag walang insulin, tataas talaga yung sugar level ng dugo. And this will cause many complications. No? Pag mataas ang sugar, this will lead to high blood pressure. This will lead to kidney failure. Diba? So baka yung tawag nito, yung dialysis, magda-dialysis kayo because of too much sugar and masisira yung kidneys. So the only cure or the only remedy for diabetes is to inject insulin, no? Mag-insulin shots yung diabetic. Okay, so ang tanong ngayon, saan ka kukuha ng insulin? 'Di ba yung insulin pinoproduce ng pancreas? So alangan naman pumatay tayo ng tao, get the pancreas and extract insulin. Hindi naman pwedeng ganoon. So we get the insulin from animals, 'di ba? Sa mga hayop, kukuha tayo ng insulin sa hayop. Kaya lang, this is bovine insulin. Bovine meaning sa baka. Mag-extract tayo ng insulin sa baka o pwede rin sa baboy or pwede rin yan sa kabayo. Okay guys, so extracting insulin from animals, yun yung remedy dyan. Kaya lang may mga disadvantages yung pag-extract ng insulin from animals. So, one disadvantage is low yield. Kasi yung insulin na makukuha natin sa hayop, konti lang. E di pag konti lang, tapos mataas yung demand, di magiging mahal yung produkto. So, yung mga bovine insulin na yan, mahal. Yung isang vial na yan, siguro mga 10,000 pesos yan, yung maliit na yan. Sa mga mayayaman, walang problema. Pero sa mga slop soil na kagaya natin, mahirap na. O, di ba? Mahal ang insulin. O, how can they afford? Mga ganyan. Okay? So, low yield, kaya mataas ang presyo. No, the amount of insulin obtained from animal pancreases is relatively small. Konti lang yung may extract natin, making production expensive and potentially limiting supply. So, konti yung supply, mataas yung demand. So, mahal. So, that's one disadvantage of extracting insulin from animals. Okay? Another disadvantage is yung mga insulin extracted from animals may cause allergic reactions. Some patients may experience allergic reactions to animal insulin. Kasi baka may mga impurities yung animal insulin na pwedeng magkaroon ng or mag-trigger ng allergic reaction sa mga diabetic patients. So, yun yung risk doon. Another disadvantage is yung risk of infection. There's a potential for animal insulin to be infected with microorganisms which could contaminate the extracted insulin. So baka yung animal may sakit tapos makokontaminate yung extracted insulin, then magkakasakit yung pasyente. So yun yung risk yan. There's a potential for animals to be infected with microorganisms which could contaminate the extracted insulin. Okay? So, our scientists are now using recombinant DNA technology to replace animal-derived insulin. Kasi ang mahal eh. So, naisipan nila na gamitin ang recombinant DNA para makagawa ng tinatawag na insulin-producing bacteria. O, sa paano ito? No? Okay, so recombinant DNA is a technology scientists developed that made it possible to insert a human gene into the genetic material of a common bacterium. Ang ginagamit na bacterium is E. coli or Escherichia coli. This recombinant microorganism could now produce insulin, no, encoded by the human gene. Alright? Okay, so again, bakit bacteria yung ginagamit sa genetic engineering? Again, nabanggitan natin yan, rapid growth, mabilis silang dumami, madaling i-manipulate yung plasmid, and yung ability to replicate the inserted DNA efficiently kasi mabilis dumami ang bacteria, especially E. coli. The E. coli is the workhorse of genetic engineering. E. coli is a bacterium, a bacteria na common sa fecal matter. Okay, so this is how they make insulin using recombinant DNA. So we will extract the gene sa human DNA. Itong gene codes for the production of insulin. Makikita nyo sa ating diagram here, in-isolate yung human gene that codes for insulin production. Human insulin gene, ito. Okay, then we get the plasmid of E. coli. Ito yung circular loop of DNA ng bacteria, itong E. coli. Then using restriction enzymes, we will cut the plasmid of E. coli. Ayan, ha? Pinutol natin yung plasmid. Then using ligase, no, ang ligase ay parang molecular, molecular glue. Yung human insulin is pasted using DNA ligase into the plasmid DNA of E. coli, resulting in a recombined plasmid. Ito, no? So itong plasmid ng bacteria contains the human gene that codes for insulin production. Then itong recombined plasmid is reinserted back into the bacteria. So itong DNA ng bacteria, itong plasmid, contains the human insulin gene. So ano ngayon ang epekto nito pag nag-insert tayo ng human insulin gene into the bacterial plasmid of E. coli? So, yung human insulin gene will reprogram the DNA of the bacteria so that the E. coli bacteria will produce the human insulin protein. Parang ang ginawa natin dito, ni-reprogram natin yung bacteria, yung E. coli, using the instructions dun sa human insulin gene, so that the E. coli bacteria can also produce insulin. Normally, di ba, ang E. coli doesn't produce insulin. Wala namang capability o ang E. coli to produce insulin. Ngayon, since we inserted the human insulin gene sa DNA ng bacteria, yung bacteria now has been reprogrammed. No, binago natin yung genome ng E. coli so that the E. coli, using the instructions dun sa insulin, human insulin gene, will produce the insulin protein. Then itong bacterium na to, itong recombined bacterium, is placed in a fermentation tank para mas dumami yung bacteria. Pag madami, we can extract more insulin. Alright? So that's how they make insulin using recombinant DNA. Diba guys? So very fascinating ito. Ayan, here's another diagram showing how recombinant DNA is used to produce human insulin. So again, we isolate the human insulin gene. We cut it using restriction enzymes. Then we get the plasmid of E. coli. Yan, nakikita nyo, bacteria E. coli. Kukunin natin yung plasmid ng E. coli. Again, using restriction enzymes, we cut the plasmid, creating an opening. Then using DNA ligase, we insert the human insulin gene into the E. coli plasmid, creating a recombined plasmid, then ibabalik natin sa E. coli bacteria. So, ano nung effect nito? The insulin gene will reprogram the E. coli so that the E. coli will also produce human insulin. Then ilalagay natin yan sa fermentation tank para mas dumami yung E. coli and we can yield higher amounts of insulin. So there, no, that's how we produce insulin using recombinant DNA technology. So ito guys, so sa human cell, di ba may DNA? So yung DNA ng human, maraming genes. So we isolate the gene that codes for insulin production. Puputulin natin yan using restriction enzymes. Then at the same time, we get the bacteria, the E. coli bacteria. We isolate the plasmid, yung blue na circle na yan. Puputulin natin yan using restriction enzymes to create an opening. Then using DNA ligase, ikakabit natin yung insulin gene dun sa plasmid ng E. coli, producing a recombinant plasmid. Then ibabalik natin yan sa bacteria, creating a genetically modified E. coli. So anong effect ngayon yan? So yung insulin gene will reprogram the bacteria para yung bacteria magpo-produce din ng human insulin. Then ilalagay natin yan sa fermentation tank para mas madami. Okay guys, so that's how we produce insulin using genetically engineered bacteria. Okay, so what are the advantages of this genetically engineered insulin na galing sa E. coli? Alright, number one, not limited by the slaughter of animals. So meaning, hindi ka papatay ng hayop, di ba? Pag hindi ka pumatay ng hayop, edi na maintain mo yung animal rights, di ba? So you don't kill cattle, you don't kill horses or pigs just to extract insulin. And because genetically modified yung bacteria at marami sila, they can multiply rapidly, we can extract large quantities of insulin. No, pag marami tayong ma-extract na insulin, edi mas magiging cheaper yung insulin. So may supply that will answer dun sa malaking demand for insulin. Kaya medyo magiging cheaper yung insulin. Okay, there's no risk of transferring infection kasi galing to sa this is a genetically engineered insulin na galing sa bacteria. So hindi to galing sa hayop, so there's no risk of transferring infections na galing sa hayop kasi genetically engineered yung bacteria. And more effective at treating diabetes as animal insulin is different to human insulin. Kasi baka hindi compatible ang animal insulin. Yung genetically engineered bacteria, human DNA yung ginamit. So magpo-produce siya ng human insulin that is compatible to human tissue. Kaya magiging effective siya in treating diabetes, no? As compared to animal insulin. Kasi ang animal insulin is different to human insulin. Baka hindi compatible sa human tissue. Alright guys, and lastly, no ethical issues concerning the use of animals. Kasi wala naman tayong pinatay na hayop. Diba? Genetically engineered yung bacteria. Okay guys, so these are the advantages of a genetically engineered insulin. Disadvantages, lang siya, kasi masyado siyang effective, baka masyado namang mababa yung glucose level. No, some diabetics may complain of episodes of hypoglycemia. Hypo meaning mababa masyado yung blood sugar kasi baka masyadong effective yung genetically engineered insulin. And yung production niya medyo mataas kasi nga you will be needing high-tech equipment. No, yung mga ginagamit sa genetic engineering kaya medyo mataas lang yung production cost. Pero mababawi naman yan. No, yung investment niyan mababawi yan kasi mas magiging affordable niyan sa maraming tao. So, yan yung mga advantages and disadvantages of genetically engineered insulin. Okay? Ayan. And ito pa guys, no, ang genetic engineering ginagamit din ito sa paglilinis ng mga oil spill. So, you know what an oil spill is? Nakakasira yan sa kalikasan. Now, there is a certain bacteria called Alcanivorax porcumensis. And itong Alcanivorax borcomensis, this is a bacteria that eats oil. So Alcanivorax borcomensis is a small bacterium that thrives on petroleum. Nangangain yan guys ng langis. No, able to feed on both hydrocarbons and alkanes abundant in oil. O biruin nyo, sa kayo nakakita ng living thing na kumakain ng langis. This bacterium occurs naturally near oil seeps in marine environments. Alright? So, take note of the name of the bacteria. The bacteria is Alcanivorax borcomensis, which is a bacteria that eats oil. Now, itong si Vitor Martins dos Santos, now at the University of Wageningen, he was able to isolate yung gene ng Alcanivorax. Yung gene na yan controls the eating of oil. O biruin nyo guys, na-isolate niya yung gene. Etong gene na to controls the eating yung eating ability of Alcanivorax, no, para makakain siya ng langis. Alright, so with this, we can now use genetic engineering. So, ngayon baka may magtanong sa inyo, bakit hindi na lang gamitin yung Alcanivorax directly para kumain ng oil spill na kagaya nito? Diba? Itong oil spill, nakita niyo yung langis na tumagas, mahirap linisin yan. So, traditionally, ang paglinis ng oil spill ay gumagamit ng mga bird feathers kasi yung langis kumakapit sa balahibo ng ibon. So, kukuha pa sila ng maraming balahibo, ilalagay niyo sa dagat para masipsip yung langis. Diba? Alright? And kung ilalagay niyo dito yung Alcanivorax, pwede rin. Kaya lang, ang problema ng Alcanivorax ay mabagal siyang dumami. So, it will take months para malinis yung oil spill na to. By that time, baka sira na yung marine environment, diba? Kailangan malinis yan ng mabilisan as soon as possible. Ang problema ng Alcanivorax kasi mabagal dumami. So, using genetic engineering, we can reprogram the E. coli. No, pwede tayong mag-reprogram ng E. coli kasi ang E. coli mabilis dumami. We can reprogram the E. coli so that the E. coli can also eat oil. Diba? Naturally, ang E. coli hindi naman kumakain ng langis. But if we insert the gene of Alcanivorax, attach it into the plasmid of E. coli, then i-reinsert natin yung recombined plasmid na ito sa E. coli, the E. coli is now reprogrammed to eat oil. Di ba ang E. coli mabilis siyang dumami? So ikalat nyo yan sa dagat, in a few weeks, kinain na yung langis. So, using genetic engineering, we can reprogram the E. coli by inserting the gene of Alcanivorax borcomensis into the genome of E. coli. Para yung E. coli, kakain din niya ng langis. Ang advantage kasi ng E. coli, mabilis siyang dumami. And it will eat up the oil in a matter of weeks as compared to Alcanivorax, yung diretsa mong ilalagay yung Alcanivorax bacteria, kaya lang it will take months. No, by that time, sirang-sira na yung marine environment. So, we can reprogram yung E. coli so that the E. coli can eat oil. So, kayo nakakita ng E. coli na kumakain ng langis. Okay, let's talk about now itong bacteria na to called Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Okay, ano ba tong Agrobacterium tumefaciens? That's the scientific name. So, Agrobacterium tumefaciens is a soil bacterium. So, makikita yan sa lupa that naturally transfers a segment of its genetic material known as tDNA into plant cells. Ang T meaning tumor. Tumor-inducing DNA. So, pag inintroduce to sa halaman, magkaka-cancer yung halaman, magkakatumor. So, yun yung tDNA. It induces tumor sa plants. Alright? Ayan, so yung tDNA. This ability is a vital tool in plant genetic engineering, allowing researchers to introduce desired genes into plants, creating transgenic plants with novel traits. So, paano nila ginagawa yan sa agrobacterium? Gagamitin nila guys yung tDNA. Ngayon, yung tDNA na to is contained in a tumor-inducing plasmid or TI plasmid ng agrobacterium. No? Itong TI plasmid carries the tDNA. The tDNA is the region of the TI plasmid that is transferred to the plant cell during infection. So, ito yun guys. Ayan, pakita ko sa inyo ito. Yan, ito here. Okay? So, everybody kindly take a look at this diagram. So, ito yung Agrobacterium tumefaciens. So, ito yung nakikita nyo yung bilog na ito. Ito yung plasmid ng Agrobacterium. Ang plasmid na ito is called a TI plasmid or tumor-inducing plasmid. Ngayon, itong TI plasmid na to contains the tDNA or tumor-inducing DNA. Ito yung nagkaka-cause ng cancer sa mga halaman. Ngayon, gagamitin natin itong tDNA para magdala or mag-carry ng desired gene sa halaman. So, we get the desired gene. Ito, kunyari ito. Nakikita nyo ito. Itong follow my cursor. Ito, kinuha natin tong gene na to, gene of interest. Then, i-insert natin tong gene na to dito sa tDNA. So, pinutol natin yung tDNA. Then, we will insert the gene into the plasmid using restriction enzymes and DNA ligase. So, ito guys, ito yung recombinant TI plasmid. So, yung pula na ito yung foreign gene, no, na kinabit natin sa tDNA ng TI plasmid ng agrobacterium. Then ibabalik natin to sa agrobacterium. Then i-infect natin yung plant. The agrobacterium will introduce the TI plasmid with the foreign gene para mabago yung genome ng plant. No, this is a remarkable procedure. Oo, and pwede natin baguhin yung mga traits ng halaman. Okay, para mas maintindihan ninyo yung application nito, yung agrobacterium. Ito, tignan natin ito ha. So, ito yung TI plasmid, PTI meaning tumor-inducing plasmid. Ito ay galing sa Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Yung TI plasmid na to contains tDNA. Ito yung pula. Ito yung tumor DNA. Ito yung nagkaka-cancer sa mga plants. So, ang ginawa ng mga scientists, pinutol ito. No? Pinutol yung tDNA at kinabit nila yung gene of interest. No? Ikakabit ngayon dyan. Tapos ibabalik yan sa agrobacterium. Yung agrobacterium, i-infect yung halaman. Nadala-dala yung foreign gene. So, yung DNA ng halaman mababago. Fantastic, isn't it, di ba? So, ang lumalabas dyan, yung agrobacterium, parang carrier lang siya ng foreign gene. So, the agrobacterium enters the plant, often through the wounds or cuts, and the tDNA is transferred into the plant's nucleus. Okay? So, ang lumalabas dito, yung agrobacterium ay tagadala ng foreign gene. The tDNA can integrate into the plant's genome where it is expressed. This allows researchers to introduce genes of interest, such as those for herbicide resistance or improved yield. Okay, so para mas maintindihan natin yung application nito, guys. Everybody listen to me, ha? Let's talk about BT. Kalimutan nyo muna yung salitang corn. Okay, pag-usapan natin yung BT. Ano ba ang BT? BT is Bacillus thuringiensis. Bacillus thuringiensis is a type of bacteria. Alright? Yan. What is so special about BT? Okay, wag yun ang basahin yung iba. Ito na lang, itong nasa baba. Ang Bacillus thuringiensis produces crystals of endotoxin or tinatawag na cry-protein or delta toxin. Ang mga endotoxins na ito kills or they are toxic to insects. Diba? Ang Bacillus thuringiensis produces a natural endotoxin na nakakamatay sa mga insekto. So parang ang lumalabas dyan, ang Bacillus thuringiensis produces a natural form of insecticide. O, diba? Okay, so tuloy natin guys ang kwentuhan dito. So yung bacteria na to, tong Bacillus thuringiensis, again, produces a natural toxin that is poisonous to insects, especially larvae. Ayan, yung mga larvae, yung mga parang uod-uod. Okay, and ito yung problema natin dito sa Pilipinas. Punta naman tayo sa mais. Okay, ito yung malaking problema ng corn industry, guys. Kasi yung corn industry dito sa Pilipinas is affected by corn borers. Ito yung mga uod. And yung mga uod na yan, yung mga larvae na yan will turn into moths. May parang mga butter. Pero yung mga larvae, yun ang nangangain. Sinisira nila yung mais. Oh, ayan guys. So, maraming mais ang hindi nakakarating sa palengke. Tingnan itong pictures na ito, oh. Oh, ito yung magandang mais, yung nasa baba. Ito yung sirang mais dahil kinain ng mga corn borers. And maraming mais ang hindi nakakarating sa palengke kasi sinisira ng mga corn borers. Yan, due to damage, 40 million tons of corn never reach the market due to damage by corn borers. If corn borers are not controlled, the larvae will eventually turn into moths and the cycle continues. Alright? So, ang ginawa ng mga scientists ay ito. Wait, before that, anong yung, sige nga, matanong ko nga muna kayo guys. So, ang problema ng mais ay yung mga corn borers na yan, yung mga insekto. Ano ba yung traditional way of killing mga insect pests sa bukid? Ano ba yung traditional method of killing insect pests para ma-address yung problema? Ano yung insecticide, no? Insecticide or pesticide. No, yun. Pakitin yun ang ibig sabihin, no? So, ano yung mga disadvantages ng paggamit ng mga synthetic pesticides or synthetic insecticide? Ano yung downside? O, nakakamatay nga ng mga peste sa mais, pero ano yung problema doon? Kasi yung mga synthetic pesticides na yan, a-absorb ng plants yun, tapos kakainin natin yung mais. So, yung toxin baka mapunta sa atin and it may harm our health. So, it can contaminate the soil and it may contaminate the plant. And ang mga insecticides na to, mga pesticides, they kill not only yung mga insekto, but they may kill also yung mga beneficial insects, no? Like yung mga earthworms or yung mga gagamba. Kasi mga beneficial insects yung mga yan eh. So baka hindi lang mapatay yung mga corn borers, baka mapatay din yung mga beneficial insects na yan. Okay? So yun yung mga downside ng paggamit ng synthetic pesticides. So, ang mga scientists natin, gumawa sila ng tinatawag na BT corn. So, paano nila ginawa tong BT corn? BT corn is created through genetic engineering by, take note guys, by inserting a gene from the Bacillus thuringiensis or BT bacteria into the corn plant's DNA. So, ginawa tong BT corn using genetic engineering. Ang ginawa ng mga scientists, in-insert nila yung gene ng Bacillus thuringiensis dun sa DNA ng mais. So, anong epekto ngayon yan? Yung gene will reprogram the corn plant so that the corn plant will produce the toxin. Pag kinain ng insekto yung mais, edi mamamatay yung insekto pag kinain nila yung mais. Pero yung protein na yan, yung toxin, hindi yan nakaka-apekto sa tao. It doesn't affect humans. It only affects insect pests. So, ang mais ngayon, magkakaroon ng natural pest resistance. Okay? So, ang ginawa ng mga scientists ay ito, they identified the gene ng Bacillus thuringiensis that encodes the insecticidal protein they want to use. Then the gene is then introduced into the corn plant's DNA using agrobacterium. Yan, dun ngayon papasok yung agrobacterium. So everybody, kindly take a look at this diagram. So, ito ngayon yung agrobacterium. in-isolate nila yung TI plasmid ng Agrobacterium, pinutol nila yung tDNA, di ba, using restriction enzymes, and in-insert yung gene ng Bacillus thuringiensis. So the plasmid is removed from Agrobacterium and the tDNA is cut. Ayan, pinutol nila yung tDNA dun sa TI plasmid using restriction enzymes. Then in number 2, yung gene ng BT ay kinabit dun sa TI plasmid. No? The foreign DNA or yung DNA ng BT is inserted into the tDNA of the plasmid, creating a recombinant TI plasmid. Then, ibabalik to sa Agrobacterium. The plasmid is reinserted into the Agrobacterium. Then, yung Agrobacterium, i-infect yung mais para ma-introduce yung foreign gene sa mais. The bacterium is used to insert the tDNA carrying the foreign gene, yung gene ng BT, into the chromosome of the corn plant. So, yung corn plant will now produce the endotoxin para pag kinain ng insekto, di mamamatay yung insekto. Meron siyang natural insecticide. Ayan guys, di ba? Fascinating procedure. So, ano yung mga advantages ngayon ng BT corn? Ayan. So, number 1, it helps in improving crop yield. So, ibig sabihin nito, tataas yung ani ng mais. Hindi pag tumaas yung ani ng mais, edi mas malaki ang kita ng mga magsasaka. Di ba? Okay, number 2, they help in controlling soil pollution. Kasi yung mga synthetic pesticides na yan, nakaka-apekto yan sa lupa. It kills even the beneficial insects. So pag hindi ka gumamit ng chemical pesticides, you are protecting also yung mga beneficial insects na yan. BT crops help in protecting beneficial insects. Alright? Ayan, ha? And it leads to the production of disease-free crops. Ayan, kasi mamamatay yung mga peste pag kinain nila yung mais. O, di ba? So walang masisirang mais. Mas malaki yung ani, mas malaki yung kita ng magsasaka. Okay guys, so yun yung mga advantages of using BT corn. Disadvantages, konti lang naman sila. Medyo may kamahalan kasi nga genetically engineered yung mais di ba? So medyo may kamahalan yung procedure. And yung mga peste might become resistant to the toxin. Yun lang naman yung risk, pero so far wala pa namang nakikitang resistance. Alright? Okay, let's talk about golden rice. Yan. So, ang pinag-uusapan natin ngayon guys is plant biotechnology. Yan, yung production ng BT corn. Okay? Ano ba tong golden rice? Anyway, ang golden rice is a genetically modified type of rice that contains beta-carotene. Ang beta-carotene is a precursor to vitamin A. So, saan ba ginagamit ang vitamin A? Ang vitamin A kasi is good for eyesight. So, sa pag-maintain ng good eyesight. Okay, the rice was designed to help reduce childhood malnutrition and vitamin A deficiency. Kasi nung mga 1970s, may problema kasi ang mga bata noon. Nagkaroon ng malnutrition, vitamin A deficiency. So, maraming mga bata ang nasisira yung mga eyesight nila. So, ang naisip ng gobyerno, this is done in the Philippines, by the way. So, naisip ng gobyerno nung panahon ni Presidente Marcos Sr. Through IRRI. IRRI is the International Rice Research Institute sa Los Baños. They created golden rice. Okay? So, ang ginawa nila, they inserted the genes from a daffodil and a bacterium para yung bigas makaproduce ng beta-carotene. So scientists sa IRRI have engineered golden rice which has received genes from a daffodil and a bacterium that enables it to create beta-carotene. O, di ba? This offers some promise in helping to correct a worldwide vitamin A deficiency. So ito yun guys, no, yung puti na bigas Ito yung normal na bigas. Ito yung yellow, ito yung bigas fortified with beta-carotene or vitamin A. Okay? So, minodify nila yung palay para yung palay mag-produce ng fortified rice na may vitamin A para matugunan yung problema sa vitamin A deficiency. Alright? So, yun yung golden rice. O yan, that's another product of plant biotechnology. Okay? So, next. Ito yung last. Ha? Another product of plant biotechnology is the Flabber-Saber tomato. Ano ba tong Flabber-Saber tomato na to? Okay, this is a genetically engineered na kamatis that have a longer shelf life. Alright? Ang kamatis kasi guys, everybody listen to me, ang kamatis, may problema ang kamatis. Ano ba ang problema ng kamatis? Bilis siyang mabulok. Kunyari, yung burger ninyo may kamatis, ay naku, mapapanis yan kaagad the following day. Kaya kainin nyo kaagad pag may kamatis yung burger. Ang kamatis, mabilis siyang mabulok. Maiksi yung shelf life ng kamatis. So, ang ginawa ng mga scientists, gumawa sila ng genetically engineered na kamatis. Ito yung Flabber-Saber tomato. Para hindi kaagad mabulok. Okay? So, ang kamatis na ito, this is a genetically modified tomato that has its genes modified using genetic engineering. So, this is a tomato engineered to have a longer shelf life. So, ito yung Flabber-Saber tomato. Okay? Ang Flabber-Saber tomato, matagal mahinog. Okay? Bakit? Para hindi siya mabulok kagad. Kasi, bakit? Ano ba what causes yung pagbubulok ng kamatis? It is caused by an enzyme. This enzyme is called the PG gene. Ito, hindi ko na ito babasahin, makinig na lang kayo sa akin guys. Yung ripening is regulated by an enzyme called PG enzyme. The PG enzyme breaks down yung kamatis and causes the fruit to soften. So, yung PG enzyme na to triggers yung ripening. Edi pag mabilis mahinog, edi mabilis din mabulok. Diba? Ngayon, itong Flabber-Saber tomato ripens more slowly kasi mayroon silang in-insert na additional gene. Yung polygalacturonase gene na nasa antisense. Meaning, baliktad siya. Pag sabing anti-baliktad, itong antisense gene na ito suppresses the production of the PG enzyme. Suppresses meaning pinipigilan yung pag-produce ng PG enzyme. Kung pinigilan yung PG enzyme, edi hindi yan mabubulok agad. O diba guys? So ito yan guys, ito yung normal tomato. Ang normal tomato, meron siyang gene na nagpo-produce ng PG enzyme, ito yung protein. Yung PG enzyme na yan, ito yung nagpapabulok sa kamatis. Ang ginawa ng mga scientists, dinuplicate nila yung itong DNA ng kamatis, pero in an antisense orientation. Yung antisense meaning baliktad. Okay? Ayan guys, so anong epekto ngayon nito? So, itong antisense gene, it suppresses the production of the PG enzyme. Kaya nade-delay yung ripening. Pag na-delay yung ripening, edi mas matagal yung shelf life. Ayan ha, the Flabber-Saber tomato has a longer shelf life than the non-modified tomato. And yung viscosity, mas viscosity meaning yung lapot, mas malapot yung ng kamatis. Kaya yung mga ketchup na maganda to kasi mas malapot yung ketchup, 'di ba? Increased thickness and consistency. So the Flabber-Saber tomato has a slightly increased viscosity compared to the normal tomato. Kasi nga hindi pa siya hinog. Pag hindi hinog, edi mas malapot siya, guys. 'Yun. Alright, yun yung Flabber-Saber tomato. So, no soft spot, walang malalambot na part ng kamatis, walang bulok, hindi siya nabubulok guys. Yun. So mas mahaba yung shelf life. Alright? So there, ha guys. O, sige. So yun yung mga applications of genetic engineering sa halaman.